Why Prince Philip had a strained relationship with Sarah Ferguson. The Untold Royal Story. For decades, the British royal family has fascinated people around the world. Every smile, every ceremony, every photograph, and every headline has been examined in extraordinary detail. Yet behind the glittering palaces, priceless jewels, and centuries-old traditions lies a complicated network of personal relationships, private disagreements, and emotional struggles that rarely become fully visible to the public. Among the many royal relationships that attracted attention, few have remained as intriguing as the one between Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York. At first glance, they appeared to belong to the same family, sharing public appearances, official ceremonies, and countless royal occasions. But over time, it became increasingly clear that something had changed. Their relationship became distant, strained, and surrounded by speculation. Many people have wondered what really happened. Was it simply a clash of personalities? Was Prince Philip protecting the reputation of the monarchy? Or was there something much deeper that caused one of the royal family's strongest personalities to lose confidence in someone who had once been warmly welcomed into the family? The answers are far more complex than many headlines have suggested. To understand why Prince Philip developed such a difficult relationship with Sarah Ferguson, it is necessary to travel back many years before the scandals, before the newspaper photographs, and before the public controversies that would eventually dominate international headlines. Prince Philip was unlike almost anyone else inside the royal family. Born into the Greek and Danish royal families in 1921, his childhood was filled with instability. His family was forced into exile. Political upheaval transformed his early years into a life of uncertainty. His parents separated emotionally. His mother experienced severe mental illness, and Philip spent much of his youth moving from one place to another. Instead of growing up surrounded by comfort and security, he learned discipline through hardship. These experiences shaped his personality forever. He believed deeply in duty. He admired self-control. He valued loyalty above almost everything else. And perhaps most importantly, he believed that members of the royal family had an obligation to place the institution ahead of themselves. When Philip married Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he understood that his own ambitions would always come second to hers. Few people could have accepted such a role, yet Philip did. He spent decades walking 2 steps behind his wife. He supported Queen Elizabeth II through constitutional crises, political change, family disagreements, international conflicts, and enormous public scrutiny. Although newspapers often portrayed him as blunt or outspoken, those who worked closely with him frequently described him as someone who believed completely in protecting the crown. He expected the same commitment from everyone who joined the royal family. That expectation would later become extremely important. Meanwhile, Britain itself was changing. The monarchy faced increasing pressure from television, newspapers, photographers, and eventually 24-hour news coverage. Royal privacy became more difficult to protect. Public expectations evolved. Traditional values collided with modern celebrity culture, members of the royal family suddenly found themselves living under a microscope unlike anything previous generations had experienced. Prince Philip understood these dangers long before many others. He believed that one careless decision could damage the reputation built over centuries. Every royal represented not only themselves, but the institution itself. Mistakes carried consequences. Scandals carried even greater ones. By the late 20th century, the younger generation of royals faced challenges Philip himself had never experienced. Prince Charles attracted constant media attention. Princess Diana became one of the most photographed women in history. Prince Andrew served proudly in the Royal Navy, but gradually entered a different world after his military career. Into this changing environment came Sarah Margaret Ferguson, known affectionately as Fergie. Sarah had known Prince Andrew since childhood through royal connections. Unlike many outsiders, she already understood some aspects of aristocratic life. She came from a respected family with links to the royal circle. She possessed warmth, humor, confidence, and an infectious personality that immediately stood out. She laughed loudly. She enjoyed conversation. She often appeared spontaneous. Compared with the reserved atmosphere traditionally associated with Buckingham Palace, Sarah seemed refreshingly energetic. Many people found her charming. When Prince Andrew and Sarah became romantically involved, public excitement grew rapidly. Their engagement generated enormous interest. Newspapers described Sarah as lively, approachable, and relatable. Many believed she represented a modern royal bride. The wedding, in July 1986, became a spectacular celebration, watched by millions around the world. The atmosphere appeared optimistic. The royal family seemed united. The future looked bright. At that time, there were few visible signs that serious problems would eventually emerge. Prince Philip initially appeared supportive. Like the rest of the family, he welcomed Sarah into royal life. She became the Duchess of York. She received titles, responsibilities, and international attention almost overnight. But entering the royal family has never been simple. From the outside, royal life appears glamorous. Inside, it demands extraordinary discipline. Every appearance is planned. Every speech is carefully prepared. Every public interaction can become tomorrow's newspaper headline. Members of the royal family quickly learn that personal freedom becomes limited. Private opinions often remain private. Emotions are carefully managed. Tradition influences almost every decision. For someone naturally outgoing and expressive, adapting to these expectations could prove difficult. Sarah faced challenges almost immediately. Prince Andrew's naval career required long periods away from home. Their marriage began with frequent separations. Loneliness became an unavoidable reality. While Andrew fulfilled military duties, Sarah often navigated royal life largely on her own. She encountered relentless media attention unlike anything she had previously experienced. Newspapers commented on her appearance. They criticized her weight. They analyzed her clothing. They speculated about her friendships. Even ordinary moments became public discussion. Today, such pressure would be overwhelming. During the 1980s, support systems inside the monarchy were far more limited. Mental health received less public understanding. Media intrusion became increasingly aggressive. Sarah attempted to cope through humor. She remained cheerful in public. She smiled, she joked, she laughed. But beneath the surface, the pressures continued growing. Prince Philip observed everything. He had spent decades understanding how media narratives developed. He recognized patterns. He knew that public affection could disappear quickly. Popularity offered no protection from scandal. His philosophy remained consistent. Ignore unnecessary publicity. Maintain dignity. Protect the institution. Never allow personal behavior to overshadow royal responsibility. Whether Sarah fully understood those expectations remains open to debate. Friends often described her as someone who enjoyed connecting naturally with people. She disliked excessive formality. She wanted warmth rather than distance. In many ways, these qualities made her popular. But those same qualities occasionally conflicted with traditional royal culture. The contrast between Prince Philip and Sarah Ferguson gradually became more noticeable. Philip admired restraint. Sarah expressed emotion openly. Philip preferred discipline. Sarah preferred spontaneity. Philip believed that public image required constant protection. Sarah often behaved naturally, even if photographers happened to be watching. At first, these differences appeared manageable. Families often include people with contrasting personalities, and not every disagreement becomes a serious conflict. However, inside the royal family, even small differences could grow into larger concerns because every action carried public consequences. As years passed, journalists increasingly focused on Sarah. Some stories praised her energy. Others criticized her behavior. Tabloid newspapers competed aggressively for exclusive photographs and sensational headlines. Royal reporting gradually shifted away from official duties toward personal lives. The media discovered that controversy attracted readers. The greater the scandal, the greater the sales. Prince Philip watched this transformation with growing concern. He had spent decades defending the monarchy from political criticism, constitutional debate, and changing public opinion. Now, the greatest threat increasingly appeared to come from within the family's private lives becoming public entertainment. Although Sarah remained well liked by many members of the public, cracks slowly began appearing beneath the surface. Those cracks would widen dramatically during the coming years. Financial pressures, marital distance, media obsession, constant public judgment, personal loneliness, institutional expectations. All these forces gradually collided. No single event destroyed the relationship between Prince Philip and Sarah Ferguson. Instead, it was the accumulation of disappointments, misunderstandings, and increasingly serious controversies that slowly changed how Philip viewed his daughter-in-law. In the beginning, he saw potential. Later, he saw risk. Eventually, he would see damage to the institution he had spent his entire adult life protecting. That transformation did not happen overnight. It unfolded step by step, decision by decision, headline by headline. And each new controversy made reconciliation more difficult than the last. The story that followed would become one of the most discussed chapters in modern royal history, not simply because of scandal, but because it revealed the enormous tension between personal freedom and institutional responsibility. Sarah Ferguson wanted to be herself. Prince Philip believed that no royal could ever afford such freedom. Those opposing philosophies would eventually collide in ways neither of them could have imagined. History often remembers royal families through crowns, castles, ceremonies, and grand occasions. But behind every public image are private relationships that are far more complicated than they appear. The story of Prince Philip and Sarah Ferguson is one of those relationships, a story shaped not only by personalities but also by duty, expectation, disappointment, and the immense pressure of life inside one of the world's most famous institutions. By the time Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson officially divorced in 1996, the damage to their marriage had already become painfully clear. The separation marked the end of a chapter that had once begun with optimism and worldwide celebration. Yet for Prince Philip, the divorce itself was not necessarily the greatest disappointment. Throughout his life, Philip understood that marriages sometimes fail. What mattered most to him was how members of the royal family conducted themselves while carrying the responsibilities that came with their positions. He believed that every public action reflected not just on an individual, but on the monarchy as a whole. It was this belief that shaped much of his attitude towards Sarah Ferguson. The publication of compromising photographs in the early 1990s, combined with years of sensational headlines, convinced Philip that the reputation of the royal family had suffered serious damage. Those images became some of the most talked about royal scandals of the decade, fueling tabloid coverage around the world and overshadowing the charitable work and public service carried out by other members of the family. According to numerous royal biographers and long-standing reports, Prince Philip found these events deeply upsetting. Although accounts differ on the details of private conversations, many historians agree that he viewed the scandals as a failure to protect the dignity expected of a senior royal. There are also reports that communication between Philip and Sarah became extremely limited for many years, though the exact nature of their private relationship has never been fully confirmed publicly. Sarah Ferguson, meanwhile, faced enormous public scrutiny. She remained a familiar public figure, wrote books, supported charitable causes, and continued raising Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie with Prince Andrew. Despite the divorce, she maintained close ties with parts of the royal family, particularly through her daughters. Over time, the public image of Sarah Ferguson also evolved. While many people continued to remember the scandals of the early 1990s, others saw a woman who had endured relentless media attention and made repeated efforts to rebuild her life. She often spoke openly about mistakes, personal growth, and the challenges of living under constant public observation. Prince Philip, however, was known for rarely changing deeply held principles. Those who worked with him frequently described him as someone who valued responsibility, discipline, and accountability above almost everything else. His expectations were demanding, not only for others, but also for himself. Throughout more than 7 decades of public service, he maintained a remarkable commitment to supporting Queen Elizabeth II and protecting the institution of the monarchy. Whether he ever personally forgave Sarah Ferguson is something only the family themselves could truly answer. There has never been an official statement confirming complete reconciliation or permanent estrangement. Like many family relationships, the truth almost certainly remained private. What is known is that as the years passed, the royal family itself continued to change. New generations entered public life. Public attitudes toward the monarchy evolved. Media coverage transformed dramatically with the rise of the internet and social media, creating challenges even greater than those faced during Sarah Ferguson's most difficult years. Prince Philip remained committed to duty until the end of his life. After retiring from official engagements in 2017, he largely stepped away from public appearances. His focus shifted toward a quieter life while continuing to support Queen Elizabeth behind the scenes. On April 9th, 2021, Prince Philip passed away at the age of 99 at Windsor Castle. His death marked the end of an extraordinary era. Tributes came from around the world, recognizing not only his military service and decades of royal duty, but also his unwavering commitment to the crown. Sarah Ferguson publicly expressed respect for Prince Philip following his passing. In interviews given afterward, she spoke warmly of both Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, describing them as important figures in her life and acknowledging lessons she had learned during her years within the royal family. In later years, Sarah also became increasingly present at family occasions connected to her daughters and grandchildren. Although she was no longer a working royal, she remained connected to the family through enduring personal relationships. Looking back, it is tempting to reduce this story to a simple conflict between two people. But history is rarely that simple. Prince Philip represented continuity, tradition, discipline, and institutional responsibility. Sarah Ferguson represented warmth, spontaneity, openness, and, at times, vulnerability. Neither perspective alone explains everything. The pressures of royal life have challenged many individuals across multiple generations. Constant public attention, relentless media scrutiny, limited privacy, and enormous expectations create circumstances unlike almost any other family in the world. It is possible that under different circumstances their relationship might have unfolded differently. But history records what happened, not what might have been. Today, historians generally view the strained relationship between Prince Philip and Sarah Ferguson as part of a much larger story about the modern monarchy adapting to a changing world. It reflects the tension between centuries-old traditions and an increasingly intrusive media culture, between institutional duty and personal freedom. The British royal family has survived wars, constitutional crises, abdications, scandals, and social change. Individual relationships have sometimes been damaged along the way, but the institution has continued to evolve. For Sarah Ferguson, the journey became one of public mistakes, resilience, and reinvention. For Prince Philip, it remained one of unwavering service, discipline, and loyalty to the crown. Their story reminds us that behind every famous photograph is a far more human reality, one filled with expectations, misunderstandings, successes, disappointments, and choices that are often made under extraordinary pressure. Some questions may never receive definitive answers because the people who lived them chose to keep those answers private. Perhaps that is fitting. Not every chapter of history ends with complete reconciliation. Not every disagreement receives a public explanation. Sometimes the most enduring stories are those that leave room for reflection rather than certainty. And perhaps that is the untold truth behind the strained relationship between Prince Philip and Sarah Ferguson. Not simply a story of conflict, but a reminder that even within palaces and royal traditions, family relationships can be every bit as complicated, fragile, and deeply human as those found anywhere else.